Hello, DeSoto. This is Mayor Rick Walker with another edition of Mayor's Minutes recapping our June 4th City Council meeting. We began with a proclamation recognizing June 5th as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in DeSoto. This is a day to remember those who have lost their lives or been affected by gun violence, while also recognizing the importance of responsible gun ownership and the safety of our community. The council then moved through several consent agenda items. One of those was approval of the contract and permit for the annual 4th of July fireworks show at Riverfest Park. Walden Company has provided the city's fireworks display for many years and will continue that relationship this year as well. The council also approved a resolution setting a future public hearing date for a proposed TIF district related to a 53-unit memory care facility. The action doesn't approve or establish the district, it just sets the date for the hearing as July 16th so the council and the public can consider the proposal through the formal hearing process. Another consent item involved Flint Meadows East townhomes. Council action was limited to accepting the easements and right-of-way for that plat. Our largest discussion item of the evening was a presentation from Digital Realty. Digital Realty recently purchased approximately 1,435 acres within Astra Enterprise Park and came to introduce their company and their early plans for a proposed data center to the city. Their presentation emphasized that data centers are now part of critical infrastructure of our modern society. We use them every day for communication, education, transportation, healthcare, commerce, navigation, research, and entertainment, along with many other parts of our daily lives. Digital Realty described the Astra Enterprise Park as a strong fit for this kind of development. The former Army ammunition plant has been undergoing remediation and is ready to be developed as a hub for advanced manufacturing and technology. One important point is that there was no formal development application submitted to the city. The presentation was just an introduction and an early look at the concept, not the final development approval. Digital Realty also discussed community concerns and their commitment to listen, engage with local priorities, support local businesses, create construction jobs, and look for ways to provide tangible benefits to the community. As this moves forward, the city will continue to evaluate any future proposals through our public process with attention to infrastructure, water, power, noise, environmental issues, and our long-term community benefit. The council also considered an agreement with Johnson County for the 89th Street Culvert Replacement Project east of Kill Creek. This is a stormwater improvement project, and Johnson County's Stormwater Management Program has approved funding for 50% of the cost of the design and construction for this project. The agreement approved covers the county's participation in the design phase. Once the plans are complete and a contractor selected, a separate agreement will come back for the construction costs. We also discussed the possibility of purchasing a Parade of Hearts sculpture for the Riverfest soccer fields. The DeSoto Arts Council and staff recommended that the city consider bidding on a soccer-themed heart sculpture with a maximum bid of $10,000 using the Public Art Fund money. If successful, this sculpture would be first displayed at City Hall and then later moved to Riverfest Park near the new soccer fields. This is part of our broader effort to add public art, placemaking, and community identity to our public spaces. And then finally, we began our first major discussion of the 2027 budget. This was our first introduction to the budget at the start of the process. Discussion showed how much our city's financial picture has changed in recent years. Our revenues continue to grow significantly through economic development, sales tax activity, building permits, franchise fees, and the partial valuation of the Panasonic property. The city is also seeing increased demands for planning, inspections, administration, infrastructure, and public services. A few key points stood out. The city's assessed valuation has increased substantially, with Panasonic now representing a major portion of the overall assessed value of the city. Sales tax revenues remain strong, though they have leveled off somewhat as the major Evergy infrastructure work has slowed. Electric franchise fees have increased as Panasonic's production has begun ramping up, and our staff continues to project those revenues conservatively. As I've said many times, growth gives us opportunities, but it also comes with responsibilities. The goal is to manage these new revenues wisely, keep pressure off residential property taxes, and maintain strong city services as we continue to invest in our infrastructure for the long term. The budget process will continue over the next several months with additional council discussions and public hearings before final adoption later this year. And before I close, I want to come back to the Digital Realty presentation for a few additional minutes. I know there's a lot of public interest in data centers right now, and I think the topic deserves a little more discussion than I could reasonably fit in the agenda summary that I try to do. So I want to spend a few extra minutes now talking about what was presented and some of the key issues the city will need to evaluate as this project moves forward. I'll just start by repeating Digital Realty recently closed on 1,435 acres within Astra Enterprise Park with the intent of developing one or more data center campuses. And I want to be clear that this was not the final development plan. It was not a site plan approval. It's just an introduction to the community by Digital Realty. The purpose was to explain what Digital Realty does and to give the council and the public an early look at the type of project that they are considering. Digital Realty described itself as one of the largest data center companies in the world, serving major cloud, technology, enterprise, and connectivity customers. Their broader point is that data centers are a part of the critical infrastructure of our modern economy and society, and we rely on them every day for communication, education, healthcare, business, transportation, government services, navigation, research, entertainment, banking, and many other parts of daily life. They also explained why Astra Enterprise Park is being considered for this type of investment. This is the site of the former Sunflower Army ammunition plant. It's already an industrial redevelopment area. It's been undergoing extensive remediation, and it's being positioned as a major advanced manufacturing and technology employment center that started with the Panasonic project. It's not a quiet residential area or a greenfield that's being converted to an industrial use. It's a large former federal industrial site that has long been a source of major employment, utility activity, and industrial development. It's important to understand that the city of DeSoto didn't go out and recruit data centers or Digital Realty to come to DeSoto. The properties were marketed by private landowners because they were zoned for industrial use, where data centers would be allowed under existing zoning. So the city still has the authority and responsibility to regulate any type of development like this through our site plans and engineering standards, utility planning and our building codes, noise regulations, and other applicable requirements, but cannot simply take away the existing zoning right because a lawful use becomes controversial. The scale of the potential project is significant and it will require serious review. Digital Realty showed a conceptual layout and an early design, but those are far from final plans. Any actual development will still need to come through the city's formal review process. A major part of the presentation focused on infrastructure commitments. On power, Digital Realty stated that it has a long-term electric supply agreement with Evergy and that Digital Realty would fund all the needed substation and transmission upgrades, estimated at approximately $300 million. Their message on the infrastructure is that the infrastructure needed to serve the project is paid for by the project and cannot be shifted onto residential taxpayers. On the water side, Digital Realty stated that up to 1 million gallons per day would be available for the North Data Center parcel, and that number is important. The project has a defined need and is not asking for unlimited water. It was a defined peak amount, and Digital Realty indicated they are willing to work with the customer for on-site storage conservation strategies so that they can stay within that water framework. The industrial wastewater generated by cooling water from this site would require a separate treatment train than the city's municipal water plant, and it's the responsibility of the developer to fund that infrastructure. The presentation also addressed noise, visual appearance, and community impact, including sound barriers, generator enclosures, acoustic screening, landscape berms, and other mitigation measures intended to meet or exceed our local requirements. So for me, the key takeaways were this is a very large project and it needs to be reviewed carefully, but it's being proposed at the right location. It's separated from our residential uses, and the former ammunition plant has already seen this type of development in the past. As this project moves forward, our job as a city is to ask hard questions about water, wastewater, power, sound, emergency services, and environmental issues. Look at the revenues generated and the long-term community benefit. This presentation was an introduction of the company, and the real work will come as the formal applications, site plans, and utility plans, along with any necessary development agreements, are brought forward. Well, I've rambled on a little longer than normal, but I thought it was important that we take a little deeper dive into this. It's a large project and it raises a lot of fair questions. People deserve clear information about the information that's been presented, where the process stands today, and what the city's role will be as this project moves forward. So we're going to keep asking the questions about water and wastewater, power and sound, and the environmental impacts, along with what those financial impacts and long-term community benefit will be. And we're going to continue working through the public process. As always, I want to thank you for taking the time to stay informed, listen in, stay engaged. And with that, I'm Mayor Rick Walker, and that's this week's Mayor's Minutes. See you around town.